Hey guys, Kevin with MCrider. Using trail braking on the street is kind of a controversial topic. Usually that's something that's reserved for track days. But this week I'll show you an example of when using trail braking on the street is appropriate, and we'll get out on the range and I'll show you how you can practice this on your own. So before we talk about the pros and cons of trail braking, let's define what it is. Remember, in the MSF class and what we've taught here on MCrider, what I believe the safest way to negotiate a corner, if you eliminate other circumstances, is using that slow look, press and roll technique. So you approach the corner, you're going to slow to appropriate entry speed, then you're going to look through the corner, so you're turning your head in the direction you want the motorcycle to go. You'll press on the hand grip on the side of the intended turn, and then you'll roll on the throttle or maintain the throttle through the corner. For most corners on the street, this is the safest way to get around it, but there are circumstances where that may change. But what about examples where using a little bit of speed to negotiate a corner is the safer alternative? Let's look at a map from a daily ride that I face just about every time I return home, and I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about. This is a stretch of highway that I use frequently to get back home. That's a 3-lane highway that speeds are about 60 to 70 miles per hour, and that first right-hand turn up there I take frequently to get back to my neighborhood. So I have to slow down prior to that curve to get on that side street and head back into the neighborhood. Because traffic is so fast coming up on the freeway and I run the risk of being rear-ended here, I usually use trail braking if I've got traffic behind me in order to get into and out of this corner as quickly as possible. So this is where trail braking has its real advantages. It allows you to negotiate a curve a little bit faster, with the added risk of possibly losing traction if you don't use trail braking appropriately through the corner. So the rider approaching a corner can use trail braking to brake just a little bit later before the corner, and then they're going to maintain or trail the front brakes into the corner. Somewhere around the apex or halfway through the corner, they're going to begin to release pressure on that front brake and apply the throttle to get the motorcycle to stand up through the corner. The benefit of trail braking is the rider is able to get into and out of the corner a little bit quicker, and that's why it's so popular for use on the track. To get an idea of how much brake pressure we're talking about when you're trail braking into a corner, sit on your motorcycle in the garage and reach out for the front brake. As you begin to squeeze in that front brake, at some point you'll hear a click. And that click is the switch that activates your tail light. It's also about the point where the brake pads begin to clamp down on the rotor. So with the brake in that position, just past where you hear that click, see if you can roll the motorcycle forward and backwards. Make sure you're neutral to do this. See if you can roll the motorcycle forwards and backwards. If you can roll it forwards and backwards, but you feel a little bit of resistance from the brake pads, that's about the amount of pressure that we're talking about on the brakes when you're trail braking into a corner. So it's a slight pressure. It's not a strong grip on that front brake, a slight amount of pressure, and just enough so that you can feel the resistance but still roll the motorcycle forward and backwards in your garage. Too much brake pressure on that front brake into the corner, you can cause that tire to tuck or to lose traction, causing a low side accident. That's why I consider trail braking an intermediate to advanced level skill and not something that you would want to use on every corner, but there are obviously circumstances where it's to your benefit to get into and out of that corner a little quicker than normal. Now that we know what trail braking is, we've defined it, and I've told you places on the road where I use it. Let's take Sir Charles out to the parking lot, and I'll show you the difference between the traditional slow look, press, and roll technique to negotiate a corner and how you can practice or learn trail braking out on an empty parking lot without a threat of other traffic on the road. We'll get this exercise in the field guide for you guys who are patrons. And if you want information on becoming a patron, go to MCrider.com/FG for more information on how to become a patron and how to get access to the field guide. So for this exercise, I laid out some cones creating a 90-degree curve, but it's only practice, so you can just simulate the curve in the parking lot. The main thing is to get in and out of a curve using the proper technique. So make sure you pay attention to the technique here and practice at slower speeds until you get a hang of it. And remember again, don't put too much pressure on that front brake because you can cause the motorcycle to low side if you're applying too much pressure in the corner. So let's look at the normal slow look, press and roll technique to get through this corner. So let's watch it again. This time we'll slow it down and we'll highlight where I go to and come off the brakes. So look at my right hand here. You can tell I'm using the brakes to slow the motorcycle down. Right here I release the brakes and I continue to look, press, and roll through the corner. This time we'll hold on to the brakes a little bit longer and we'll trail those brakes into the corner. Let's look at it again. This time we'll slow it down and we'll zoom in so you can see what I'm doing with that brake hand. Using the other technique, this is the point where I would release the brakes and begin to look, press, and roll through the corner. But this time I trail the brakes all the way into the corner and I'm all the way at the apex before you can hear the throttle begin to roll on again. So I hope you found this week's video useful. If you're not a supporter on Patreon and you would like to learn how to get access to the field guide, go to MCrider.com/support and all the information on how you can support us on Patreon and get access to the field guide where we've got this exercise and a lot of other exercises there for you to practice and develop your skills on your own. So until next week, guys, this is Kevin with MCrider, and we'll see you on the road.